What's up guys, KPlaysHere. Today will be the first video in probably a while where I don't mention hunting horn at all, because day 2 of the weapon teasers brings us to the heavy bowgun. Oh, wait. Okay, tomorrow will be the first day that I don't mention hunting horn in a while. But for now, range weapon time. Usually these are much later and almost last in the lineup, but it makes sense that we're seeing this now instead of going in the usual order since it's the second most used weapon that we've seen in the trailer so far. That means that we've seen some of what's going to be shown already, but there are also some clearer details on some of the newer mechanics. I'm excited to get into the weapons that have yet to be seen, but for now, let's talk heavy bowgun. Like I mentioned in the video on the Summer Games Fest interviews, the developers hinted at the bowguns and hunting horn being the 3 most revised weapons going into Wilds. And now that we're seeing the first of that trio, we're getting a bit of a better idea of what they meant by that. This isn't quite the heavy bowgun some of you know and love, and I'm interested in hearing how you guys feel about that. From what I'm seeing though, they're really pushing the heavy side of the weapon. The biggest new detail comes in the form of this attachment right here. This is the ignition mode, or ignition? Igniter maybe?
It's the remix to ignition.
Whatever we end up calling it, this will be the replacement or maybe evolution of the special ammo mechanic added in World. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that whenever we see this, it's a visual indicator that the special ammo is being used, which will be helpful in piecing together what's going on in this trailer. The animation for attaching the ignition is much faster than the one for switching to Wyvern Heart or Wyvern Snipe in World, which is a plus. Wyvern Heart's machine gun turret mode is still there for all your bullet spraying needs, but that's where the similarities between ignition mode and special ammo end. Above the meter being used to fuel the machine gun mode, you can see 3 bullets. At first, I thought that this was just the normal ammo clip, but as we see later, that's not the case. It turns out that there's some sort of combination between the chargeable Wyvern ammo and sticky ammo, and the hunter had to have the ignition attachment on before he could use these. That means that each gun will have multiple ways to use the ignition meter. At least 2 if we can take this UI as an example of the norm. There may be a third type too, because there's this quick clip of a hunter that uses what looks like a Wyvern Snipe. You can see the attachment on the gun, so if my guess about that is right, this probably isn't just normal piercing ammo. On the topic of normal ammo, we finally have confirmation of something we've been wondering about for a while. Heavy bowgun definitely has the ability to rapid fire now. You can see 3 shots only expending 1 actual bullet right here. That's yet another light bowgun ability that's going to be usable by both guns now, which has me curious about the possible new things they'll be adding so that it stays unique in comparison to its heavier cousin. Hopefully it's not just a slow hefty gun, light mobile gun kind of situation, but we'll see when that video comes around. Focusing on what we have here for the moment though, we see how normal and ignition mode shots interact. Once you expend your meter, it'll naturally regenerate, but you'll also recharge it with every normal shot you land. That means that gameplay may revolve around using your more powerful built-in ammo, charging with more conventional shots, and then rinsing and repeating. Should be great for conserving ammo if that ends up being the case, especially with rapid fire being a thing now. Then again, from what I remember, charging shots were added to switch things up in Rise, but that didn't end up being all that game changing in the long run. Speaking of playstyles though, Wild's heavy bowgun builds a niche playstyle tool into the weapon as a default feature, the shield mod. If we're to take the mention of it at face value here, the shield that was optional before is always there as a defensive tool now. Should be useful to compensate for your slow movement and heavy recoil on certain ammo types. There are 2 clues I'm seeing here that has me thinking that this is the case, one of which is outside the video. It's quick, but you can see after the block that heavy bowgun now has animations that brace itself manually and then take a short back step to manage the knockback. Before, as long as you weren't actively firing, you just automatically block, but now that there are actual dedicated defensive actions, there's another story. I might be thinking too much into that, but then there's the weapon descriptions on the official site. Even though they're obviously the only 2 weapons shown so far, both heavy bowgun and greatsword has an able to guard mention on their pages. We don't know why that's important enough to call out yet, but if I had to guess, it probably has something to do with the power clashes. Heavy bowgun can brace itself against a charge with the shield before firing a shot at point blank range, which is amazing by the way, so maybe there will be different types of clash depending on whether or not a weapon can block. If heavy bowgun's clash involves blocking, it only makes sense that the shield is no longer an optional thing. To me, this is saying that Wild's heavy bowgun is probably going to be the tanky ranged weapon, between the new guarding abilities and this flashy explosive move that reminds me of the light bowgun's Wyvern Blast counter. Don't know if this is a focus strike or not, but it is the second counter-like move we've seen so far. Rise and Sunbreak's trend of giving nearly every weapon a counter might be continuing to Wilds. We'll have to keep track of these as the weapon teasers come out to see if it ends up being the case. That's pretty much everything we can comb out of this trailer though. From here, we'll be in uncharted territory when it comes to seeing weapons that haven't already been featured in other promotional content. That's pretty exciting. I'm kinda surprised that we haven't seen much of a Rise or Sunbreak influence yet, but then again, we are only 2 weapons deep out of 14. Maybe some of the others might borrow more from those games than World and Iceborne. Only time will tell, and luckily that time is going to be measured in hours and days instead of weeks and months like before. For now, I'll let this one play out in full so you guys can see it unedited if you haven't already. I'll catch you guys tomorrow with the next trailer reaction. Until then though, this has been another KPlays and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.